So this past week in BDO, they just released a new patch which led to some of the best endgame gear getting devalued. That is the Debos, and they've done this before and recently with the Pen Black Stars as well, right? So with a quick succession of endgame gear getting devalued to this extent, a lot of players are feeling kind of hurt and disappointed by this. So in this video, I'm going to go over the situation, break it down, and give you my perspective on when you should actually be spending money and time in getting gear in a game like this, where you're constantly worried about, devaluing your gear or losing its value or falling behind. So anyway, let's get started. So first, let's take a look at what happened. As you can see here, there are a bunch of Debos on the market. They're just sitting there. Before, you used to see a lot of pre-orders and stuff on these bases and stuff, but they're coming in really quick right now, and people are buying them and trying to make a quick buck by enhancing them or tapping it for themselves because now it's so available compared to before. So, it is definitely a shocking sight to someone who used to grind for these and think like, wow, these are so rare, because you'd go like 3-4 hours without getting a single drop. But hey, that's what happens. This game progresses. Average gear score of players keeps progressing. They'll release new content, which inevitably is going to devalue our previous gains. Now, the thing about Debos and Pen Black Stars is they were the pinnacle. They were the pinnacle gear, and people would grind endlessly to get them. They'd spend hundreds of hours grinding. Many tens of thousands, even hundreds of thousands of cron stones were sacrificed trying to tap them. And it was in a sense, it was an achievement for a player. Getting your Pen Debo necklace, Pen Black Stars, triple Pen Black Stars. It was awesome, right? When you finally achieve that goal. But now when you look at it, they're so much cheaper. Like, for example, the price of Pen Black Stars were once upon a time at the 120 bill mark or something, and then they dropped greatly. Now they're going back up because sovereign weapons are finally out, and now the demand is back. You probably saw someone in Guild or someone on Discord or Reddit saying, hey, I spent X amount of time getting the Pen Black Stars a year and a half ago when they were at the peak price, and now players bought them for a third of the price or half of the price or something. It's like, yeah, you feel bad when you're at that former state where you're the one who spent all that time, and now people were able to get the same thing for a lot less effort. Why grind out 120 bill if that item is going to be worth half the price, in 6 months? Well, it comes down to the individual, right? If you actually need it, if you're actually going to use it, there really isn't a catch-all answer to that question, but this is the nature of BDO. It's always been like this, and it's always going to be. I really do wish that PA would pay attention a bit more to the markets. Like, for example, when they first released the guaranteed boss gear upgrading system, right? To get your Pen boss gears. When they released Jatina gear, it's like, we felt that back then as well. Like, some of the best gear just got decimated in terms of value. And, it's not a good feeling, but at the same time, it's been there always. It's always been like this. This is history of BDO, and it's never going to change. You always got to think, hey, what are they going to do next? Gear grind is all they got essentially in terms of long-term progress. So what are they going to do? Release new gear. Right now we have the Fallen God armors, but guess what? The Slumbering Origin armor isn't going to be the best gear someday. They'll come out with something else. Imagine they're like, hey, time for a new tier of armors. You need to get a new flame. You need to do this and that. And it's bound to happen. It's the inevitable future of BDO. It's always going to be like that. So with the Debos crashing in price, and recently the same thing happening to Black Stars, I'm sure something will happen in the future where prices will fluctuate, but I doubt it'll ever be as expensive as it used to be. And I don't think it needs to be either. Like, personally, I don't think you should have to grind 100 hours for this item. I think, if it was up to me, I think 6 months of grinding, like dedicated grinding for 2 to 3 hours a day, I think that should constitute endgame gear. But of course, the argument people come up with is, oh, if everyone's geared, everyone's just going to quit. They have nothing to do. I'm like, bro, this is a hamster wheel. You're just running around in circles. Don't tell me that that's content. Don't spit this, oh, it's a marathon, not a sprint thing at me. Like, look, you're not going to a gym trying to better yourself or something. You can't really equate it like that. It's like, sure, it's a personal achievement at best, but this isn't a game that respects achievements now, is it? RuneScape is a game like that. For example, when was it? Like 2016 or 17, they released the Inferno. That was a really difficult solo challenge which only a fraction of the players can successfully do. and it gives you the best in slot melee cape. And that cape is still best in slot. Like, they respected that achievement. I got that cape all the way back then. It took me 2.5 weeks of just struggling every day for an hour or two and just learning and progressing. And finally, all the stars aligned. I got lucky, and it finally just I was able to down Zuck. And guess what? I got the cape, and I still have it. And I still remember that moment. And I'm really glad that game respects it by not releasing another 1, 2, 3 new capes that I have to grind for, just endless money grinding and running in circles and stuff. Like, it's one of those things that you got to understand. This isn't a game that's going to respect your achievement. That's not to say that there aren't account-wide progression and things that, you can progress over the long term, but gear is something that is going to always get devalued. Now, what happens in like other games like World of Warcraft or Final Fantasy? They release a new patch, a new raid wing. Guess what? Your old gear, except in the very beginning when you're catching up to the next tier of content, the old gear is like completely just tossed aside. I'm playing World of Warcraft right now. I had to go through my inventory and NPC all this gear that I spent hours grinding and raiding for and doing Mythic Plus, and that's just the nature of the game. Every new big patch, they'll come out with a new set of gear, and you do that grind all over again. But the difference is you're not spending 1,000 hours grinding for gear. It's less than 100 hours to get max geared on WoW. Like, it's way easier to get geared and caught up on WoW, and you can actually catch up. Whereas in Black Desert, it's a different type of game where you're grinding for a much longer amount of time, and you can end up spending a lot more money IRL to get there. Like in WoW, you can just buy WoW tokens and spend that gold in buying boosts. People will carry you through the raids and just hand you the gear if you pay them enough in-game money. So it's a different situation. I know some players don't like it when, the game's like, oh, new expansion, all your gear is useless now. I mean, BDO doesn't do that. You just start off where you left off. But the thing is, there is a sense of devaluation year over year. Like, for example, 2 years ago, having 700 gear score, 710 gear score, that was big shit. You were like top dog, high-end PvP ready endgame player. But then the next year, what was that? The next, the upper group of players, they're at like 730, 740. The year after that, they're 750, 760, 770, 80. Like, the gear just keeps going up. Like, they're always constantly moving the goalpost. And some people will argue that is the content of the game. Without that, they don't have anything to keep players hooked. Unfortunately, it's not a very entertaining method of keeping players on the game, just dangling the carrot, moving the goalpost. I personally don't like it, but I enjoy the game. I mean, this is one of my favorite games. I'm not an active player anymore grinding for that endgame gear because I've seen it so many times. I spent so many hours grinding, and finally I get it, and then it's like, now what? Well, there's a whole set of other gear that I need to grind out as well. So it's like a never-ending thing. I always felt like I was climbing such a steep slope that I'll never be able to catch up unless I really start sacrificing my life, like spending all my free time and even putting money into the game. Otherwise, I wouldn't have caught up. I mean, right now people say, hey, oh, it's so easy to gear up. And it's true. It's way easier to get like 301 AP now than it was 2 years ago. But that 301 AP doesn't have the same value. There are people who have like over 330 AP with way more DP and are PvP built. You're not even going to touch them with 301 AP now. So it's a different game. And it's just that endless progression of the game. So yes, it does suck that your gear gets devalued. But at the end of the day, you got to ask yourself, did you get any joy out of it? Like when I got my pen Blackstar, I was happy and it made me feel good. And I was able to grind at higher end spots once my AP went up. And getting those upgrades actually pushed me into a new stage where I'm able to grind out new content. It's not the most entertaining thing, but it was something. So when you're looking to invest your time to really grind out a piece of gear or put all your silver into that new upgrade, you got to think to yourself, is this going to be valuable to me right now? Is it going to actually benefit me in what I'm doing in the game? Once I get that piece of gear, am I just going to be like, all right, time to take a break and just quit? Or am I going to actually push myself to the next stage and I'll be able to tackle new content? Because if you're just going to quit, then why even bother buying it? Just hold on to your silver, wait for the price to drop in a year, just buy it later. But at the same time, it really comes down to if you're actually going to use it. For example, if you're looking to upgrade your armors, let's say you have tri-armors and you're going for tets. Now, those Tet armors can be expensive if you're just going to buy it. and they can cost a lot of cron stones in the long run to get all 4 pieces to tet. If you're tapping it, you got to think to yourself, hey, why am I tapping this? Do I do endgame PvP? No, I only do cap content. Then what's the point, right? Is getting that DP going to help you in PvE, like pushing you to a new grind spot or tackling some new content you're excited for? Yes, then sure, it might be worth doing that now. If not, then what's the point? So like, you got to really think about why you're grinding for a piece of item. If you're doing it just for fun and that's your enjoyment in the game, that a progression in your gear is what you play this game for, that's fine. There are players who play like that. One of my good friends only did that, and he was a very high-end PvEer, but that he never really cared for endgame PvP. He never really cared for sieges and stuff. That's his thing. I mean, it all comes down to what you want. There isn't a real clear-cut answer is yes, you gotta wait for this amount of time before you buy this piece of gear, because it's really random. You never know what kind of update they're gonna do. You never know what kind of new grind spot they're gonna add and just completely decimate the market. Once upon a time, like ominous rings used to sit at like 300 plus mil each. Now they're like worthless. And my stupid ass didn't sell them when I had 27 in my storage. Like I should have sold them, and now I lost out on a lot of money. But yeah, that's just the nature of the game. It is what it is. Now, look, I know it doesn't really affect me, this recent Debo thing. Like, I bought some Tet Debos earlier this year for like 50 bill each, and they used to be a lot more expensive, right? And I thought it was a steal then. Now it's like, even better. But, well, you just got to understand that this is something that's always going to happen. This has happened many times before, and I've lost a lot of value in my gear over the years. Like, whenever they added those Jatina gears, when they added the guaranteed pen upgrades for your boss armors and stuff, like I lost a lot of value in my gear, and everyone did. I mean, that's just the nature of the game. And just because they give out some free piece of gear doesn't mean that it's the best time to play. I said this in my last video, I'll say it again. They're just trying to push majority of the players that are at a certain gear score over a hump which players would normally quit, and they're trying to indoctrinate the players into the stage where you're going to be grinding for cron stones. That's their main monetization. That's where they want players to be. At the end of the day, you got to find what's fun for you. Is grinding in that circle and getting that next upgrade really important? Is it really going to affect how you're playing the game and how much fun you're having? Only you can answer that. I was in a guild once, like back in 2020. A dude grinded 6 to 8 hours a day. He took 2 weeks of vacation. He was off for, I think it was Christmas or something, and then he took another week off, and he just grinded all day long. And finally, at the end of the grind, he bought himself a pen dandelion, and he was so proud of himself. He didn't log in for months after, but at the same time, I'm like, man, you wasted so much time on that, and now, just like a year after, that was worthless. Like, it was so much easier to get those pen dandies. So anyway, I can just keep rambling on and on about this, but bottom line, guys, do what's right for you. I know it can feel bad when shit like this happens, but at the end of the day, it's always happened. It will continue to happen. This is just a natural progression of the game. Just make sure you're having fun, and if you're really going to invest that time of yours, make sure it's worth it. Make sure you're getting fun out of it. Make sure it actually means something. So don't just throw it away and grind because you have to grind. They're always going to move the goalpost. Anyway, like, comment, and subscribe, and let me know your thoughts on the whole situation with the economy and how it keeps crashing like this, or with the endgame gear, and if it's a good thing or a bad thing. I know getting people geared, it's going to feel good, but at the end of the day, they'll just come out with something else, and something else where you're going to have to spend that hundreds of hours grinding, that endgame grind. So it's just a never-ending cycle. I want to know what you guys think, though. Anyway, thanks for watching. I'll catch you guys next time. Peace.